instead of finding your passion, just get really good at what you do or what you kind of like doing, and just get better at that, rather than using this word passion and feeling that you've got to be all emotional and tense about it. But just, if you're good at your job, maybe knuckle down, get better at it, and you might start enjoying it more. And also, stop always thinking that there's a better option around the corner, this fear of missing out. Fear of missing out on a wonderful career. Maybe it's really just about picking one thing and deciding that you're going to do this thing and be happy with that.
Hey guys, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio. Today, what we have is a show with Barry, McDonagh and Tommy. I am up in Cairns at the moment, and we have a few shows left in the bank, backed up. But this one is one that Tommy recorded on his own with Barry. Now, apologies for the audio, as the audio is recorded via Skype. Not sure what happened there, but the audio is still pretty good. So you guys, it's not our normal quality audio, but it's still pretty good. So you guys will get heaps out of this show. Barry's a long-time guest of ours and just an awesome guy. And yeah, it's gonna be one you really want to listen to. So, but guys, make sure that before you or after you check out the show, you check out our sponsors. So we're brought to you by True Protein. Head to trueprotein.com.au. What you'll find there, guys, is you'll find all sorts of proteins, performance foods, health foods, even some cool apparel and recovery equipment and so forth. Basically, they've got everything that you could ever imagine, everything that you could ever need. Aminos and creatines, fast release and slow release, proteins, all vegan blends, all kinds of gainers for mass gainers, all that kind of business. Stuff for weight loss, stuff for night recovery proteins. I'm not being too coherent here, but they're bloody awesome. And you can get 10% off using the code ADVF. That's at trueprotein.com.au. Also, guys, head to adventurefittravel.com. What you'll find there is you'll find all of our trips that we have coming up. We have an epic amount of trips coming up for you guys at the moment. So we've got Vietnam on the radar. South Africa is coming up this year. Iceland is coming up. Mexico, Everest Base Camp, Thailand, Hawaii. Basically, guys, how it works is I plan an adventure itinerary anywhere around the world. So let's use Bali, for example. We're about to head to Bali. So in Bali, we've got 8 days. In those 8 days, we'll do a day of surfing, a day of rafting, a day of diving, some stand-up paddleboarding. We'll also train throughout, so we'll get our heart rates up, blow the cobwebs out, really, do some hard work and really enjoy it. And also focus on some mindfulness. So we'll do three yoga sessions, or a couple of yogas and a meditation session. And then we drink beers when it's time to drink beers, and we eat burgers when it's time to eat burgers. And just we basically have as much fun as is humanly possible. So if you guys, that sounds good to you guys, which it should, and if it doesn't, then you should not listen to this show because you're an idiot. If that sounds good to you guys, then you can check us out at adventurefittravel.com. Use the code RADIO for 10% off, and that's it. Also, guys, if you'd like to support this show, you can do so by heading to www.patreon.com/adventurefit, and you can give as little as $1 per month to support the show and support Adventure Fit Media. Thanks. Here's the show.
Welcome back, Mr. McDonagh.
And I'm very happy to be back. Yeah, we had great fun the last time. I think, I've been thinking about the community thing a lot in the last couple of weeks, because I've been reading a book as well on anxiety and depression. Is the title Lost Connections? I'm hoping I got that wrong.
Is it by Johan Hari?
Yes.
Isn't he great?
Very, very good.
Fantastic,
It's and the core of kind of what he's speaking about is about this loss of connection leading to things like anxiety and depression. Yes. And, so I live in Dublin, and as I interact with the city, I think because of technology, maybe, possibly, we seem to be connecting less and less with one another face to face. And so when we're in a space where we might strike up a conversation, it's so much harder to do when everyone's looking at their phones, or it just feels a bit more awkward to make that step.
Absolutely.
Because you think they're busy and you don't want to interrupt them. They're doing something better. I think when you're staring at your phone, it's kind of giving people the impression I've got something more interesting here in front of me, and more that I want to engage with, other than you, whoever's in the company. And so I think of things like, going to a yoga class, for example. You go to a yoga class, you do it. There's this emphasis maybe on, connecting with yourself and relaxation. But then as soon as the class is over, everyone disperses and they're gone straight out the door. And I think people are looking for these opportunities to connect, but they're not given them. People don't create enough of them. And we're just there talking about CrossFit, whereas that's one example of an experience where I think the community is really built into it. Wouldn't you agree? The community aspect.
Well, absolutely. And, you touched on some really good points. Johan Hari did a fantastic podcast with Joe Rogan. I'm not sure if you heard it, but it was great.
No.
And I'm really excited to explore some of this stuff with you, mate. But the thing about CrossFit, and you're exactly right, it is easier and easier every day as technology progresses and our social ideology progresses, that comfortable situations are the go-to, and we can with greater ease avoid uncomfortable situations because we now have things that we can do. Like if we're in an elevator, how many people get their phone out and just look down at it? Honestly, because subconsciously I feel, they don't even know they're doing it, but they just don't want to be stuck in that awkward silence. And it's bizarre to even exist in a world where we're all connected and we all descended, and evolved from a fungus 3 billion years ago. We're all connected, that we can't have a conversation in an elevator. But the thing about CrossFit is that, and, high intensity exercise, we're all doing the same workout. And when the coach says 3, 2, 1, go, you have a certain thing to do. You have a certain amount of reps to complete under a certain time cap. It's you against the clock. And this is talking about not necessarily the social interaction, but more so the uncomfortability. But exactly how well or shithouse you went when the clock runs down to zero. And the application to lifestyle, I guess, where this is significant, is the fact that if you're someone that comes in here and you naturally, I guess, cheat a few reps, or you don't go down, or you don't do what the coach is saying, or you just stop, or you make excuses for yourself, you're probably doing that in real life as well. And you're someone that's probably saying, oh, I'm so sorry, mate, I couldn't get to work on time, that the tram was late, when really it was just that you slept in and you watched too many episodes of Game of Thrones last night. But
that's interesting. So it's a reflection.
It is. This is why I gained such a personal level of fulfillment from being a CrossFit coach, is because there is a significant degree of personal responsibility when you do the workout yourself, but you also help people in that application to lifestyle. People come in all the time. They say, "Oh, I can't do a snatch, or I can't do a squat." And it's okay. You may not be able to do it now, but it doesn't mean in 3 or 6 months' time you won't be able to do it then. And it's a really good application, to use that word again, because it shows people that the pursuit of happiness, or whatever you want, that attainment of fulfillment, is just that. It is a practical journey, and some people aren't just happy for a reason or sad for a reason. They're happy because they've done something about it, and they're productive, and they're fulfilled, and they have gratitude because they've done something about it. And I really feel that that's what CrossFit does for a lot of people.
It reminds me of, you've probably been following Jordan Peterson, that Canadian psychologist, and it reminds me of what he speaks about when he talks about we're not really looking for happiness. We're looking for a sense of meaning and a sense of, having undertaken something difficult and overcome it. That's where the real joy comes from. And
absolutely.
I'm sure, the same with exercise. It's very uncomfortable, but you feel so good afterwards. And even with that awkward silence that you mentioned there in the elevator, there is this discomfort of being in that space with other people and like, okay, do I start a conversation? But if you work through the discomfort instead of grabbing your phone, you'll be so much more happier for it because you've connected with other people. If you strike up a conversation, or even if it's just engaging very, very on a very minor level with people, you still feel better for having pushed through the discomfort than rather gone for the easy option, the easy way out, which is to pretend you're checking your voicemail or checking your texts. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I just finished reading his book, actually. It's a fantastic book, 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get it? Have you got into it?
I haven't read the book. No, I've just been watching his YouTube videos.
Yes. Yeah. He's slightly controversial, and I kind of love that. I love anyone that's controversial because, you know, everyone should have their own flaw and their ability to speak when they want to speak. And, you know, he goes his own way, which I think is really interesting. But his views on evolutionary psychology and all that sort of stuff, and I find mostly fascinating, you know, and we can look at the modern world today and we can look at how easy it is. But, you know, back in the day, I guess, when the way our bodies have evolved to perceive the world and, you know, make us stay till 2018, I guess, we really do need a sense of fulfillment in our life because, you know, like we used to gain so much gratitude and so much fulfillment. We used to get pumped with feel-good hormones from going out there, not only finding an animal, but killing the animal, skinning the animal, you know, feeding the tribe. Everyone else would work together to raise their own children. You just have this very, very communal, social, like everyone's put in, you know? And that, again, bring it back to CrossFit, like everyone's put in tonight. We've all worked really hard and we're all feeling the same sort of thing that everybody else is feeling. Even in ancestral times, because they were moving around, they were getting all that, you know, that endogenous morphine pump as well. So that was an added bonus. But in this day and age, something as simple as a dopamine and serotonin kick back in the day, like hunting food, now it's just a click of a button away on Uber Eats. And a lot of people out there, you know, irrespective of what sort of timeline you work, like a 9 to 5 or whatever. But the sad realization is that people that work for big corporations and things like that, they're cogs in wheels and they never get the fulfillment of seeing the final output of what they've worked hard towards. And that's a massive, massive factor to the depression or the mental health issues that I think we're seeing.
Yeah, it's all a few steps removed. Absolutely. I was just doing some small DIY stuff yesterday and I haven't done it in a long time. And it felt so fulfilling just to hold tools, to feel like you've done the simplest little thing around the home and fixed it.
Yeah.
Because it's immediate as well. It's immediate sense of that's complete. It's a mini project. And I think people get the same from cooking as well. Get that same sense of, you know, having made a nice meal. Because there's not, you know, because as you say, we're working in offices now and, you know, we're all on these kind of maybe working on projects that are long term and sometimes they get cancelled and it's somebody else's project. It's not yours. You don't have ownership over it. So there's all these disconnects from the actual work that's been done.
Absolutely.
But there's also this kind of, we're wired to work with our hands, I think, as well. You know, we can't just give that up overnight and not suffer any consequences. So, you know, you meet people who are into crafts or maybe who farm, but farm in kind of a more organic way, not so much with machinery, or who've gone back to old trades like weaving or being blacksmiths or something like that. And they seem very, very happy. There's some kind of internal joy that they're getting from doing that, which I think most people are missing out on. And it was something we all had. You know, everyone had a role within the community, in the tribe, the village, up until very, very recently. And half the problem now is what the hell do you do? Because there's so many options of, you know, people are always saying you've got to find your passion, you've got to find your thing. But it's so confusing. There's so many options. Where do you start? It was a lot easier when there wasn't so many choices and your dad was a blacksmith and you became a blacksmith, or, you know, when your role was already defined for you. In many ways, that was quite liberating.
Absolutely. You know, your dad was a prostitute, you became a prostitute, you just got in the family business. It was easy, you know. Get a today,
follow the family tree.
Yeah, that's right. Pardon the pun. Well, so what do you say then, Barry, to people that come to you and say, oh, you know, look, I've heard, you know, I've got to find my passion, but where do I start and how do I even begin a journey to find a passion, you know, before, let alone run with it?
Oh, my skin kind of crawls when I hear that word now, though, because it's so overused. It's such a cliche. And I think that, you know, the original idea of passion wasn't meant to be a good thing. You know, we're talking about the passion of Christ, and passion was a sense of obsession. You know, it was something that obsessed you, not necessarily in a good way. But now in modern culture, it's, you know, everyone is trying to put on their CV what they're passionate about. And every business has got on a page where they're saying we're passionate about this. And you don't believe it because they're talking about things that you know people could just not be passionate about, or a whole company could not be passionate about making little plastic parts for wheels in cars. You just kind of go, I don't buy into this. I don't believe it. When people use it kind of so out of context or so who overuse the word too much. And then the whole self-help movement now is this obsession with, and all the podcasts you listen to, or a lot of them, it's about, okay, so just follow your passion, Steve Jobs' speech, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But most people, I believe, don't have a passion. They have things they like doing, but I think the majority of people don't have a burning desire for a certain thing. And they feel very, very frustrated, I think, when they keep hearing this message of, find your passion, because there's people out there, let's say they're in their 30s and they're going, I've spent 10 plus years, maybe 15 years trying to discover passion. Yeah. I still don't know what it is, and it's a bit unfair to kind of put out this message that the only way you're going to be happy is find your passion. I like, there's kind of alternative approaches to that, which are, instead of finding your passion, just get really good at what you do or what you kind of like doing, and just get better at that, rather than using this word passion and feeling that you've got to be all emotional and tense about it. But just, if you're good at your job, maybe knuckle down, get better at it, and you might start enjoying it more. And also, stop always thinking that there's a better option around the corner. This fear of missing out. Fear of missing out on a wonderful career. Maybe it's really just about picking one thing and deciding that you're going to do this thing and be happy with that. Going back to what we're saying about when you had a role in the village, there wasn't really a choice. You were just kind of handed on an apprenticeship and you got on with it. But I think those people were probably a lot happier than people who are in offices now trying to figure out their passion and what way they should go. But, So what I do is I talk to people about what they like rather than what they're passionate about, and maybe kind of work from there. But do you get what I mean about the whole passion thing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, and I probably have like a slightly different take on it. I still, I'm just lucky to have, not to make you skin crawl too much, mate, but I'm lucky to have found things that I'm really passionate about, and I kind of had to come to a sense that the things I'm passionate about weren't necessarily financially beneficial for me initially. I loved having conversations like this. I love to really talk and learn about people because people know so much more than I do, and I'm just a curious, dumb little dude. But I just want to learn more. That's a thing of passion to me. CrossFit is, and playing guitar is for sure. But what I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is there a reason why people only like things and they don't actually know what they're passionate about? And has that got anything to do with the role that modern distraction plays on people's lives, and that because people don't have enough time with themselves, they don't have the ability or the tools, I guess, to find what they're passionate about?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so I think maybe, let's say 20% of the population maybe have passions, things that they're really excited about, and they just, from a young age, they were into surfing or they were into, whatever. Yeah. But the other 80%, I think they all have things they know they like doing. I wonder, okay, maybe is it because they're afraid that they'll fail in some way, or they'll embarrass themselves if they follow something that they really feel they're passionate about? Are they blocking themselves in some way from turning a like into a passion? That's a possibility. I don't know. Maybe, that kind of 80% of the population are blocked in some way. Or maybe it's just the case that there isn't things that engage them as much as other people. I don't have an answer for that. But I just feel it's just a bit unfair to be telling the whole population, that everyone's got a passion, and if you haven't found yours, then you're kind of failed in some way, because you're on your deathbed thinking, God, I didn't have a passion like everyone else seemed to have one, and there can be a bit of regret around that. That book on where they studied and they kind of ask them the questions, what did you regret most? Yes. The main thing that comes up is not being yourself, not being true to yourself. And I think what that really means is not expressing yourself, not speaking up for yourself when you should have, not not following your own path. Now, maybe that path means not following. That path is following your passions, maybe. But I think it's very much though about being true to your feelings, expressing yourself instead of just going along with things. So, gosh, yeah,
it is tough.
I just think it's hard. It's really hard, and it's something I struggle with. I personally struggle with this idea of passion, and because there's lots of things I like doing. There's lots of things I get a great buzz out of, but do I have that really core passion? I'm not sure. Well, and that's why I go back to, am I blocked as well in some way? Is it just things, am I afraid to engage fully in something to really discover a passion? I don't know. Really don't know.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point you make. And I think what we have to stop doing potentially is look at a passion as though it's a one true love. Once you find your passion, then you're on. Now you're at Disneyland. I think passions change all the time. Like I imagine that maybe 5 years from now, like I don't know if I'll be into podcasting or playing guitar anymore, but they were my passions for a period of time. I guess maybe the word becomes slightly misconstrued with hobby. But.
Yeah, because hobby is a word that's gone out of fashion. Nobody talks about hobbies anymore. It really has.
Yeah, you got a hobby? You're a loser.
Yeah. Because hobbies seem kind of weak, isn't it?
It's very weak. Yeah.
Uninteresting. Something about hobby is kind of flat.
Yeah.
But the passion is the fiery thing, and we all want to be fired up with life.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like you kind of do a hobby when you got nothing else to do.
Yeah, and you think of stamp collecting when people say hobby.
Yeah,
so it's like,
oh Jesus! And you've got 49
so
cats
why is
in the back as well.
why is surfing? Why do people say surfing? They don't call it a hobby. Why not? For some people, I'm sure surfing is just something they enjoy doing. I don't know. Yeah. But I think they're really important questions to explore though, because you start thinking about yourself, and that's a good thing. So you start thinking what you like and what you don't like. Because I've only discovered recently, I'm 42 now, I've only discovered recently what I like and don't like. It's just bizarre. Like I started doing a big list of things. I like that type of wine. I like this type of food. I like this. But I had never done a list before.
Yeah.
And I think people around me knew me and my likes better than I did. So for example, my wife might have known things I liked doing better than I did. Yeah. It's amazing how unaware you can be of your own life, and you just kind of go on autopilot, and you're in a restaurant, you choose things, but you're not really clear in your own head. I'm choosing this because I really like, we work on autopilot so much.
Absolutely. That is a really, really good point. Barry, I wanted to flip the conversation slightly, and because the Dare, everything's been going gangbusters with the Dare. I wanted to, and what your work is, I wanted to give you a bit of time to talk about what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, sure. So Dare is the book I wrote, which then kind of developed into different programs as well for people who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. And it's been just kind of really exploding on Amazon because of the reviews it's getting on Amazon, and then more and more people are buying it and finding out about it. So we launched an app there a couple of months ago, the Dare app, and it's got lots of free audios loaded into it, so people kind of take it with them wherever they go. And I think that's really empowering for people, so that they can use it when they're out driving, they can play it, or they can, when they're in a situation where they start to feel highly anxious, they can start using the app. And so I think the app is kind of going to be very much the driver of the business going forward. And the other thing I'm exploring right now is CBD oil, cannabis oil, because I started suffering from migraines about 4 months ago, and was on different medications from the doctors and just not getting a result. It just wasn't really having any impact. The paracetamol, the painkillers were kind of working a bit, but the actual prescriptions I was getting from the doctors weren't working. So somebody recommended I try CBD oil, and the one I started using was Charlotte's Web, Everyday Advanced, and I would say reduced headaches, migraines by about 80%.
Wow.
It was really, really like, wow, that's a huge overnight kind of transformation.
Yeah.
And Now, when I stop taking them, the headaches will still come back. So there's an underlying problem there I'm trying to get to the bottom of. But in terms of, managing that pain, it's been really effective. And then I started researching the CBD oil and discovering that it has this anxiolytic effect, meaning it calms you down. And I noticed that as well when I was taking it. I was kind of more grounded, more centered. And there's lots of anecdotal evidence. If you go onto YouTube, you'll just see hundreds of videos of people talking about CBD oil for anxiety. And so I'm putting together a small research group of people in the DARE community, and we're going to start experimenting and seeing if it's effective for people, starting off with microdosing, so, very small amounts, and build up from there to the point where you start to feel an effect. And then let's see, does it really help reduce general anxiety? Because if it does, it's this natural solution which doesn't have side effects like other medications. And I think for people who suffer from general anxiety or panic attacks, I think it could be really helpful to just take the edge off that anxiety and bring down the sensitization that people feel. And it will also allow people then to go out and practice and use DARE as a tool so they can go out and face those situations that they're afraid of with more confidence, because they're not as highly strung or as highly sensitized.
That's really fascinating, because I've just about to begin my process of microdosing with mushrooms and experimenting with psychedelic mushrooms. And the reason is because I'm not sure if the data is similar to the effects with cannabis, but I had a massive experience with mushrooms. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was a complete and utter ego.
Yeah, tell me about that. I'm interested.
Yeah, well, it was on Schoolies. I actually put a whole chapter of my book dedicated to this completely, because it genuinely was the most significant 8 hours of my life. It was very, very important, and it was. I had a lot of mushrooms with a friend of mine on Schoolies. It was the wrong set and setting. I went to hell and back, experienced very, very overwhelming sensations and hallucinations, and it opened up this massive can of worms with underlying anxiety and OCD and this stuff that had been with me for quite a while. And this is obviously when I actually found your book and listened to it on audio back to front about 8 times in a row on a Sunday. It was good. It helped me a lot. It was a great experience. And what it really showed me, and what I genuinely believe, whether this is spiritually undertoned or not, is that it showed me, it just brought to light all these areas of my life that I was fucking up, really, and I was doing these things wrong. And it was a fantastic experience, because then obviously all the mental health issues came, but 3 years later I'm the happiest person in the world, and it really was an eye-opener. And that's what I'm interested in now, is it got me right into meditation and diary writing and being open with my communication when talking to people and all these things, and trying to build on to things that give me fulfillment. But this is why I want to get stuck back into exploring mushrooms again, is because there's been a lot of evidence to suggest, and there's this really great guy called Paul Stamets out there who's you know Paul Stamets?
Yeah, I saw the Joe Rogan podcast. Wonderful podcast. Yeah.
Yes. Pretty much anything I sort of list is pretty much Joe Rogan. So, yeah, I'm not that smart at all, mate.
Joe Rogan's great. It's just a great podcast.
It's just a fantastic podcast. Yeah, if you ever want to learn, to anyone listening out there, if you ever want to learn something that'll blow your mind, just look up Joe Rogan. He's got a guest there for you.
Yeah.
But
you were saying,
Yeah, look, he's doing all this work, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that these psychedelics and DMT and the psilocybin, the ingredient in these psychedelics, offers these personal explorations, a very, very important introspection that, again, alluding to what we were speaking about before, I think we disregard in this day and age of distraction.
And you're not nervous about taking mushrooms again after having had such an intense experience the first time?
Look, I was. I had a massive. I had panic attack after panic attack after panic attack. But what I've learnt about the emotion of anxiety, this beautifully evolved emotion, and everything I've learnt, and I see the spectrum of anxiety as it resonates in my life. pretty accurately, that like, I mean, I speak publicly every day for work. There's, 10, 20, 30 members per class sometimes, and I've got to speak publicly for 5-6 minutes. And then, I always get a bit uncomfortable doing that, but I recognize that that's my anxiety emotion taking me back to my ancestral times, where if I'm standing away from the crowd, the anxiety sees that as a disassociation, a potential rejection, and so I see that my mushrooms experience, while I will probably get a little bit scared of it next time, my amygdala has put in place a fear response by association, because by all intents and purposes, when I first took the mushrooms, I was potentially in a state of danger. I was out of control, and I could have done something that could have hurt me. So it makes perfect sense that I have that associated fear response. But because I understand that, and this is, again, obviously such power with the dare response, and and understanding anxiety, there's so much power to it, because you can see how it manifests in your life, and you can actually start to expose yourself to things with that power.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is that you're now talking about exploring with microdosing, which means it'd be such minute amounts that it shouldn't trigger anything too strong. Correct.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think microdosing will be. I'm not sure if I'll augment the dose any further. But it's just so fascinating. Like it's a real fad to microdose in Silicon Valley, because people get really creative off this stuff.
Yeah, completely. I think it's so interesting in the area of mental health as well. The research that's going on with psychedelics for treating depression, drug-resistant depression, and also people who are addicted to different substances. They're talking about psychedelics like ayahuasca being very powerful in helping people overcome addictions, alcohol, drug addictions. So there's, I think it was Tim Ferriss' podcast was talking about, he had a few guests on where they have centers where they treat addicts with psychedelics. It's going to evolve, and it's going to become really interesting, because the fear around doing studies with psychedelics is kind of going now, and people are being allowed to try these things out again after maybe, I don't know what it is, 30, 40 years where it was kind of banned. Yeah. So it's really interesting what the potential it has, and the healing benefits of these plants. That's kind of what we're talking about, really, is the healing benefits of natural plants that we probably were consuming for thousands of years, and just in more recent times stopped. But yeah, I was really taken aback how effective the CBD oil was, and I was aware of the whole cannabis medical marijuana debate going on, and how parents were looking to get it for their kids for epilepsy and seizures and stuff, but I never really explored it further than that. And it was only when I needed it then, I started looking it up and discovered that you can buy it legally, because it doesn't have THC, that psychoactive element to it. So you can take it, there's no high, and you can have these effects without any of the kind of side effects that you would get from other painkillers. That kind of woozy, drowsy effect you might get if you take a painkiller. Yeah. You're not getting any of that. I suppose we have to say as well that this is early days. We don't know long-term effects. There isn't enough studies really done on it yet either, but all the anecdotal evidence is there that says it definitely helps. Now I'm talking about cannabis oil, definitely helps with seizures. It helps with the anxiety. It helps with pain relief, nerve pain relief, and different kind of autoimmune diseases, helping to bring down inflammation. So it's great. I think, I'd love to see every university doing their own little psychedelic trial. And, we get to we get good evidence then to find out where these drugs are, or where these plants are effective.
The Dare University, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what's happening.
Job.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Hey,
happily so.
Yeah, Barry. One thing that I was really interested to go into that I don't think we really touched on last time was your story and how you came to actually find the exposure methods of the DARE response. But yeah, I was really interested in your personal story and what it looked like.
Yeah, so I I would say I never suffered from anxiety up until my first panic attack. But then when I do think about it, when I was maybe 8, 9, 10 years of age, there was indication of anxiety. Like I remember worrying at times my parents wouldn't come home if they went out, you know, as a babysitter, and being very worried that my parents wouldn't come home. Kind of unusually so, stuff like that. And I didn't, when I was kind of like 10 years of age, I wasn't comfortable sleeping and doing sleepovers in friends' houses. So there was something underlying there. But then it was when I was, what was I? I was 18 and I just finished this exam here in Ireland. It's the Leaving Cert. It's your big exam to finish school, just going into college. And we were out drinking, partying, and the next day, I just got hit with a huge panic attack, primarily from the, I was so sensitized. I was so hungover. I was actually in church at the time, and I was sitting there. My heart started pounding. I started feeling dizzy, and I had no idea what it was. And it was, I mean, if you've ever been like really sick and you think you're on death's door, that's kind of like when a panic attack first hits and you get so scared by the sensations. And you're just convincing yourself that something horrible, something terrible is about to happen. But weirdly as well, you know, I wasn't pulling people over and trying to get an ambulance. So kind of part of me knew that I could write this out in some way, but I was so disorientated by it. And then that led to, let's say, a year and a half of high anxiety, constant anxiety, panic attacks, and all the sensations and the unusual sensations as well that come with anxiety, things like depersonalization and all of the things that made intrusive thoughts, things that often aren't talked about as much. And then I just, I hit rock bottom and realized I'm losing some of the best years. This is college, I should be having the time of my life. And I wasn't comfortable going out without alcohol. So I used to carry alcohol around with me in little, I used to carry, those shots they give you on airplanes, those little Smirnoff vodka shots.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah. So those little bottles you took away in your coat pocket.
And this is when you were 9, you said.
In a lecture hall, just in case it kicked off.
Yes.
It was really interesting. I found that bottle, the bottle I was carrying around with me, I never cracked the seal on it. So it was just as a safety blanket. I had it with me all the time. As kind of what people now probably have their Xanax or some kind of medication that they might feel is their safety blanket with them. I didn't go to a doctor. I should have. I didn't, because I didn't want to be labeled as having a mental problem. I didn't want that stigma, and I didn't like the idea of being put on medications because it just felt like, there would be no way out then. I'd be on this for life, and that'd be my new life. So, and remember that this is, 20 something years ago. So it's like 20 plus years ago. There wasn't access to information on the internet as there is now. You just couldn't find out about this stuff as easily. You'd go to the library and the books were all these terrible, text heavy, jargon heavy psychological books that just made you feel even worse because it just felt like, okay, now I've really got a serious disorder as such. And there was nothing that was speaking to me. So it was one evening, actually, I felt a panic attack coming on. I said, you better kill me. You anxiety better kill me rather than keep threatening me. And that was the moment when things started to change. There was a shift because I immediately felt a reduction in the anxiety when I had that approach, when I said, basically bring it on, make it worse, kill me in effect, because I can't keep living this way. So when that shift happened, it was like a change of gears. And then I started following that route, that paradoxical road more and more, and just kind of went around all day going, okay, bring it on, or being much more accepting of the anxiety. So just stopping the fighting, stopping the resistance, all that stuff I talk about in Dare. And that, really, I just felt my head come above water at that point and could kind of breathe again and could have normal days again. I could get a normal day or two and went like, wow, this is definitely the right way to go, instead of trying to push it away. And I was pushing it away by, maybe doing deep breathing or trying to calm myself down, reassuring myself. And it wasn't working. I was trying to say, it's okay, everything will be fine. But when you're in the height of anxiety, that language isn't strong enough. It's not emotive enough to get to your amygdala, to send it a strong message, to turn off the stress response. You need that paradoxical approach of diving straight in and going, okay, if we're having this experience, let's have it. And in fact, make it worse.
Yeah.
That is just this paradox of overcoming anxiety. So I was, I don't know where that came from. Because people often, have said to me since, they said, oh yeah, it reminds me of Dr. Viktor Frankl. It reminds me of Dr. Claire Weekes, her books, which were of course long out there at that stage, where she talks about similar approach of kind of accepting. She talked about accepting and flowing with the anxiety. And it wasn't in fact until 2008 when I started reading the other books, because I felt I wanted to really craft and hone this idea myself, get it down, and then go and see what other people were writing about it. And of course, when I did research and discover that they were all talking about a very similar type of mindset, I went, great. It confirmed that this is the right approach, a really different way to tackle anxiety, and it's effective. And people aren't talking about it. People are just talking about management through medication or management through deep relaxation or distraction. Yeah. So that's my story. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fascinating one. And I think, you hit a really good point with, that understanding about exposure and when high anxiety is so prevalent, it becomes very illogical, and there is an emotive response that needs to occur to prove to your amygdala, or to prove to that that inner sort of thing that, like, I'm actually not in danger. I think those two different sorts of responses with anxiety, when it's, oh shit, did I just hit that car? Oh no, actually I didn't. And you can talk yourself down, through logical thought. And then it's those high panic attacks where it's really interesting. You said when you were in church, you felt like you were knocking on death's door, and it's, I mean, that's just so accurate though, isn't it? When your body is pumping you with a panic attack, your mind and your body thinks that you are knocking on death's door.
It's very hard, for people who haven't had that experience to understand how terrifying that can be, because it's not like the kind of the terror of jumping out of an airplane or doing a bungee jump. It's so it's all that unknown that you're stepping into. It feels like this whole dark, unknown space where you have lost all sense of control. And I think it's having a sense of control that makes us calm down a lot of the time. And in a lot of ways, when you're demanding more, you're putting yourself back in a position of power. You're empowering yourself. But when you feel all of that power has been taken away from you, and you don't know who to turn to, you're so confused, you're so scared, everything feels so dark, it's just like the ground has come from underneath you. And that's a very, very hard place to be in for a prolonged period of time, because people spend years caught up in this anxiety loop. It's something that if people don't get the right information on how to step out of it, they can really just literally spend years and years fearing fear. And there are certain places they only feel safe in, and it's usually their home or even their bedroom, where they kind of feel they have some sense of control of that space. But outside of their home, they feel they've no control, and that the anxiety can attack them at any point. And all their confidence is gone in their body, their confidence is gone in their mind, that they can handle these sensations and these thoughts. So disempowering really is the word of that. That's what anxiety does to you. And all the work, their work, is really about empowering people again, so they feel confident that they can, no matter what situation they're in, that they can handle these sensations of nervous arousal. So, I often say to people, this work is not about getting rid of sensations. And, people get confused by that. But what I mean is that it's not about going out and never feeling anxiety. It's about going out and feeling anxiety and understanding that you can absolutely handle it, and you can work through it in any situation. And you can deal then with anxiety in the same way everybody deals with the jitters or a bit of anxiety when they're in social situations or before public speaking. But it doesn't have to create such a disturbance that they feel they have to run away from situations. So they can sit in the situation and still feel confident they can handle it. And as a side effect, when you get very good at that, as a side effect, the anxiety lessens and lessens to the point where you're just like everyone else. You deal with your day-to-day stresses, but you're not worried about anxiety attacking you in any kind of way.
You really almost do forget to be anxious, don't you? Like I was reading back on a couple of diary entries only a few weeks back, and I was just reading over how it just, because I had OCD with pretty annoying compulsions as well, and the OCD became just 24/7 thought, intrusive thought, and I just wouldn't go away. And I was reading back on these diary entries, I was going, shit, like I can't even picture myself being this person. That's, it's, you just forget to be anxious.
Yeah, it's because being in an anxious state is an unnatural state. It's not natural to be so wound up all the time. And it's surreal. It's a surreal state to be stuck in as well. And almost dreamlike as well. So when you're back normal, it's kind of like thinking of a bad dream you were having, when you're trying to get a sense of what it was like being caught up in that. But it does feel like you feel like a very different person when you're back to normal. And it's why as well, I think people get upset when they have setbacks, because they thought that they'd left all of that behind, and then they have a setback and they go, oh no, this really is part of my personality. That's what they start telling themselves, and they get anxious and upset by that. Whereas, what I teach people is you have to understand that setbacks will happen, but if you've got the right attitude to apply the approach in that setback, then you'll move out of it again quickly. So you can see setbacks more as like kind of a short episode of the flu, something that might occasionally happen, but it's not who you are, and it's not an indication that this problem is going to come back worse than ever. But short episodes of setbacks are common as people make that journey out of anxiety. And then to the point where people won't have setbacks for years and years, but there will always be a trigger. Maybe there'll be a big life event or something that can cause high anxiety again. You might feel you're stuck in that rut again. But as long as you've got that empowering information of how to step out of it, then you can reassure yourself that this is just something that will pass, and it does pass.
It's funny, I remember getting very anxious one night over the possibility of not being anxious anymore. I was like, oh shit, like what am I going to think about now? It was just unbelievable. It was just the absurdity of the whole heightened emotion. Barry, I wanted to ask you one final thing before we try to keep the podcast a little shorter. And it is what's kind of like your tool to keep you in touch with yourself, and what's your form of mindfulness? How do you get to know Barry McDonagh on a really personal level?
Yeah, so I've experimented with lots of different stuff, but I kind of go back to what's always worked well for me, which is walking in nature. So kind of hiking, going up the mountains for a walk. I'm not talking long, just an hour, 2 hours max. And the other thing is swimming for me really just connects, because something about being immersed in water and it just kind of puts you in touch with a different part of yourself. And that for me, those environments. So I kind of need that environmental stimulation to really feel connected again. And I do try and do meditation and mindfulness. It's just I come in and out of it, so I can get it going for a while, and then I fall out of the habit again. Yeah. I know how beneficial it is. I do try. So what I try to do then is try to be a bit more mindful out and about, just in everyday activities, and just not be obsessing about the next project or whatever's going on, or maybe an argument I had, and just trying to stay more kind of present in the moment. Yeah. Like, all the good advice we hear all the time, but I think everyone is different of what works for them. And I think I've found for me, it's been nature, walking in nature, and swimming is kind of the two things that work really well. Oh, and sea swimming, like incredibly powerful. Just to be in the sea is really effective for me. Those are my things. But it's like, a lot of that is going to that list I mentioned, understanding what works. I think you have to write these things down, because you even forget, what works well for you. You need to have that jotted down somewhere, so when you're in a rut, that you have this kind of resource you can go to and go, okay, well, I know that if I just get out and do this thing, that I will feel better, so I should do it. And that might be connecting with people socially as well. You can find you get yourself very isolated very easily particularly the work I do, it's all online. There's this danger oftentimes that I can be too much in a virtual world and not enough just connecting with people and out and about. I imagine in your line of work, you've got this wonderful daily connection with people, which is very beneficial for you, and you're seeing results there and then as you work with people. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's exactly right. I want to build the MindMate up, as much as I can and do that part-time, but never lose the CrossFit coaching on the side to keep that element, which is very important, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
So those are the things, yeah.
Great. And
but I think everyone's got to find your own, your own way.
Yes.
I know the mindfulness thing is huge right now, and it's great, but I don't think it works. Not that it doesn't work. I don't think most people stick with it. So if it's not working for you, like if you just can't find yourself putting in the effort to do the mindfulness work or the meditation, then find something that does get you more connected with yourself.
Absolutely. Through
trial and error. Try lots of different things. I mean, I do so many different classes. I try all these new weird and wonderful classes all the time, just to see if there's a click. And I go, yeah, I really enjoy that. Yeah,
we don't have to just find, again, about the passion thing. You don't have to just find one thing that works for you. There could be a million things that work for you. Some that work better than others, but they could still work. You develop tools when you start to sort of get into that sort of stuff. But there's a never-ending stream of tools.
And the other thing is, so turning 40 is kind of a weird thing, and I always encourage people who are in my age group to keep experimenting with new things. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that because you've passed a certain age, you should already know what you're into and just kind of stick with it. I mean, you've got to keep trying new things, because you'd be amazed how something you never thought of, really resonates with you.
Yeah.
And, you're never too old to take up a new hobby or take up a new interest. Takes a bit of just stepping outside the comfort zone to join a class and all that. But it's always worth exploring new things.
Barry, where can people find you, mate? And anything you want to plug? Where can people download the app? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I suppose the Dare app is the first point of call now. It's just put in Dare into the Play Store or the iOS App Store. Yes. And the website is dareresponse.com. So those two places, they'll find lots of information about Dare.
Beautiful. Well, it's always a pleasure, Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Enjoy the podcast. I hope it's going well for you.
Yes, it's going very well. It's going very well, and we'll I'm sure we'll get you on for another chat down the line.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
Beautiful. All right, thanks, Barry.
Take care, man. Take care. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap, guys.
Alrighty, guys. If you enjoyed that show, please subscribe. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. You can do that on Stitcher Radio, and you can also do that on YouTube. So head to Adventure Fit Travel's YouTube page and you can subscribe there and you get all of our great content. Also, you can find the show notes, anything that you want in the show that you want to figure out where you can find it, you can get it at adventurefittravel.com/radio. Also, don't forget to check out trueprotein.com.au. Use the code ADVF for 10% off. And last but not least, www.adventurefittravel.com. Use the code radio for 10% off there. See you next week.